going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by Vivid Picks. I am your host, Josh Harris. As you're coming in, make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Helps us out bigly. Joining me on this Monday, it's a rare Monday show. Slim Cliffy, how was your weekend?
Good, pretty good weekend. Lots of stuff for me outside the hockey arena that I was interested in. So that was a lot of fun. Interesting weekend of hockey too. I mean, the Sweden games made for like all day sports pretty much. Like Saturday, the game was on at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then it was just games right until 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And then yesterday, the game was on at 8 a.m. Eastern, I think.
8 a.m. Eastern, Leafs. I got up. Well, I mean, I'm up anyway. I have a 4-month-old, but I turned that game on and just 8 a.m. hockey into NFL, into Sunday night hockey after giving myself a concussion on Saturday just was not it.
Man, I've watched that clip so many times. I think we're gonna have to cut your caffeine intake before Saturday shows from now on. We'll see about that. But no, good weekend. Pretty excited for tonight's slate. I don't know what it is. It's just the way the NHL schedule has been working out. Like the last couple of weeks, seems like every time we've had a show, there's always been like 3, 4, 5 road teams that I've really, really liked. And, you always worry about that because road teams tend to have lower scores than home teams. But, you got Edmonton, Boston, Los Angeles, Colorado, all on the road tonight. And then Vancouver late night game at home against San Jose. So pretty wide open slate, I think, as far as ownership is concerned, because you do have 3 high priced lines all in road matchups and then that smash matchup at home. So I think it'll be interesting to see how ownership shakes down tonight. We'll definitely be talking about that as we go through the games.
Yeah, there was a couple surprising ownership spots I thought would be higher. I thought would be lower. So, yeah, like my initial read on this slate was a little bit off. I had to rewire. But, yeah, I mean, Vancouver is a 4.1 total tonight, which we'll get to. That's obscene, absurd, whatever word you want to do. We should get into this slate. Before we do, though, if you didn't know, not yesterday, but the week before, Watch Gamers TV won $1 million in the 555 NFL Millie Maker. We're celebrating by making any Sims package off $20 off to new customers. That ends tonight. Our data package now includes access to our Sim tools with support for Showdown, which is very, very nice. Build up to 10,000 lineups in Stochastic in 60 seconds with our contest generator. The base package allows you to build up to 500 lineups and export up to 20. The max package allows you to build up to 10,000 and unlimited exports. I built 69 lineups for the vibes last Monday night, and then everyone got hurt. But I will be doing it again tonight. So make sure to click that link in the description below. Get the $20 off the Sims. Or you can go on to stochastic.com. It's a big banner at the top of the screen. You won't miss it. Let's get into this slate. And we'll start with a little bit of a banger here. Boston Bruins with a 3.4 total. Heading into Tampa. The Lightning have a 3 total. I meant to go look because David Pastrnak got hurt at the end of the first, but then he came back. I would imagine he's in tonight. I didn't see anything otherwise. I like Boston one here. They're expensive. Like 22,000 is really expensive, especially because you can't fit them with any Vancouver or anything like that, which makes sense. But I don't know. 22,000, 6.7% projected ownership. Huge top 2 stack percentage. Not the highest, but right up there. They get a good power play matchup. Jonas Johansson's been bad. Pastrnak has been incredible this season. That top line has looked very, very good. Yeah, like it's not an elite 5-on-5 matchup by any stretch of the imagination, but bad goaltending, good power play spot. I think, and we'll talk about Colorado later. If you're spending up, I guess you're going to be deciding between, really expensive Boston, really expensive Colorado. You have Tampa, who's $400 less at home. In this game, I think Boston 1 is my favorite of the lines 21,000 more expensive tonight.
Yeah, I also do like Boston one. So much so, in fact, that I wrote him up for my picks article today. Free to read almost every day, as long as there's hockey and there's more than one game. Over at Stokastic.com, just head on over to the NHL section. I mean, I think we touched on Jonas Johansson on Saturday's show. For anybody that wasn't watching, like, he's a goalie that he's just bounced around the league. Like, he's a guy that teams that desperately need a goalie can kind of plug in, and that's basically where Tampa is. Andre Vasilevsky might be back sometime this week. Doesn't look like it's going to be tonight. Jonas Johansson is actually off to a pretty good start in net for Tampa. He even posted back-to-back shutouts at one point. And then things have really fallen off a lot since he posted those back-to-back shutouts. 7 of his last 8 games, he's given up at least 4 goals. The other game, he gave up 2, and it was that game against Chicago where Chicago had, like, I think they had 14 shots in the game or something like that, and Jonas Johansson led in 2 goals on 14 shots, or 2 goals on 16, whatever it was. So he's definitely just kind of showing, the guy that he is. Like, I said it on Saturday. I was surprised that they didn't go to Matt Tompkins on Saturday. I guess you don't want him going up against McDavid. Like, I can understand that. I'm wondering if the same thing might not apply tonight. Like, if this were like 25 teams in the NHL, Tompkins would be starting, but they don't want him in against Boston. Like, I kind of get that too, but you can't rely on scoring 5 goals every single game to try to eke out a win. So that's why I did write up Boston one. I mean, they're perfectly correlated on the power play. Like, Tampa's penalty kill has generally been pretty good this year. It's just, again, Johansson is a problem in net for them, and not in a good way. He's not like, oh, he's a problem for the opposition. It's like, no, he's a problem for Tampa Bay. And it just gives them a really, really good matchup. Like David Pastrnak, we've talked about it a couple times this season. Like, we both kind of expected him to, like, not fall off the face of the earth, but, not be like a 65 goal threat that he was last year. And it looks like he might actually be exactly the same thing so far this season. Brad Marchand's been shooting the puck a little bit more. Even Pavel Zacha has been shooting the puck a little bit more of late. So, I do like Boston one because it's a pretty good matchup considering who they're facing in net. What I don't like about it is that Tampa Bay has been pretty consistent using Brandon Hagel on the top line the last, I want to say 4 games. And that top line is just a lot better defensively with him there. They're at 2 expected goals against, 1.9 actual goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 this season. Defensive numbers were a little bit worse last year. I wonder how much of that was Victor Hedman playing hurt and his defensive number sliding and all that. But either way, their defensive numbers have been really, really good. And I wonder if it's enough to stop Boston because, let's face it, if the Boston top line only gets 6 shots on goal here tonight, they could still score on 3 of them against this goalie. That would not shock me in the least. So it's kind of that balance between, I don't think it's a very good 5-on-5 or power play matchup for Boston. I think it is probably the best matchup against a goalie on the slate. So I do like Boston one. There are a lot of high price lines that you can go to here tonight. So it's not like, you're missing out if you're not playing Boston one or something like that. You can go to Colorado. You can go to Edmonton. You can go to expensive Vancouver stack, power play stack, or whatever. You can do the same thing in Dallas. Los Angeles is cheaper, but there are a lot of spend up spots to go. I just think it's a really, really good matchup considering just how poorly Jonas Johansson is playing right now. 869 save percentage over his last 8 games. That would be a decent mark on the penalty kill, and he's doing that overall. He's just not playing well. So I do like Boston one as well. Where it gets interesting for me is Boston 2. Trent Frederick, I think he had 2 goals against, was it 2 goals against Montreal on Saturday?
2 goals on 2 shots, yeah.
Yeah. He was a guy I slandered, which is why I say we should be making an all slander team every single night.
Raphael Harvey Pinard of the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. But that second line has been pretty good for Boston this year, just in general. 3.7 expected goals for, 2.9 actual goals for, 66 shot attempts per 60 minutes. You get James Van Riemsdyk on the top power play unit. And the reason I kind of like them is Tampa Bay looks like they're going back to Anthony Cirelli centering Steven Stamkos, or Stamkos centering Cirelli, however that's going to work out on the second line, or even Nick Paul. I guess they're all three are centers technically.
Yeah.
Cirelli and Stamkos have not been good together for a long time now. This year, you're looking at 4.8 expected goals against, 85 shot attempts against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That's literally like a low-grade penalty kill. The defensive numbers were better last year, but still 3.2 expected goals against in a much, much larger sample last year. And that's a mark that's 30% worse than the league average. Like, just not a good defensive line. I don't know. Like, Boston 2 is coming in over-owned. I'll bring up top stacks real quick on DraftKings, 0.7% top 2 stack, 2% ownership. Again, I think it's a fine spot to go for like a two-man Coyle, Van Riemsdyk, Coyle, Frederick, something like that. I think it's not a bad matchup, especially when you consider who they're shooting on. So I do like Boston's entire top six. I kind of like that second line two-man a little bit here tonight. On the Tampa Bay side, like, I really, really do like the Tampa top line. Don't get me wrong. The Boston top line has not been that great defensively. What they are getting is great goaltending. It's basically each top line has opposite problems. Tampa's top line's playing pretty well defensively. They're just getting awful goaltending. The Boston top line isn't really playing that great defensively. They're kind of trading chances. They're doing what Pittsburgh does with the Crosby line, is they're trading chances a lot, but they're getting 962 save percentage behind them at 5-on-5. Like, what do you do when you're up against that? So I do kind of like Tampa 1 here tonight. I just don't think it's a particularly good matchup for them with the way Boston's goaltending has gone so far this year. So I'd be more inclined to stack them in definitely in a 20 max, 150 max type of format. Tampa 3 is kind of interesting. Like, anytime Michael Esamont's on the third line with Jeannot, or, you know, even when Cirelli was down there or whomever, I don't mind a two-man out of there. If you're playing like expensive Colorado or expensive Edmonton or something like that, you're probably going to have to dip down to some of these guys somewhere. And Jeannot and Esamont really haven't been that bad together so far this year, so I don't mind that as like a little two-man on the Tampa side. I think I like the Tampa depth better than the Tampa top guys. I do like Boston 1, but it's more a function of who they're facing in net, not necessarily that it's a good matchup for them.
Yeah, but by the function of who they're facing, it makes it a good matchup. You know what I mean? So like, but also if you're like going to jam a Vancouver power play stack, you're going to be dumpster diving. It is expensive if you can fit it. You know what I mean? So like, you're going to need a Tampa 3. You're going to need cheap guys on Seattle. You're going to need, you know, Martin Pospisil, guys like that. You know what I mean? Like, that are really, really cheap. So yeah, I mean,
unless you're playing on FanDuel, and then sorry, you can't play Martin Pospisil tonight.
Yeah. Well, not until Christmas next year. Let's go. Oh, back-to-back bangers. Edmonton Oilers with a 3 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 3.5 total. Calvin Pickard starting for the Oilers tonight. Alexander Barkov out for the Panthers. Anton Lundell is going to move up to the top line center. Second line, the top line is Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Lundell. Second line, Kachuk, Bennett, Evan Rodriguez. Edmonton sticking with McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Connor Brown, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, Evander Kane. Surprise, surprise, Leon Draisaitl and Evander Kane are not working. Never has, never will.
Kane had a hat trick like a few games ago.
It was a natural hat trick in like a minute 37.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the funny part. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but it is Evander Kane's shot metrics are actually fine this year. His playmaking metrics are just like non-existent. I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, but like the point I was making, like Draisaitl away from McDavid is a completely different player. And I understand, I guess, in the coach's brain why they want to do it. They want to lengthen the lineup. But like, if you look at if you go to like natural stat trick, wherever you look at your advanced stats, you look at the with and without. Draisaitl with McDavid, Draisaitl without McDavid. It is stark. So like, I don't know, man. Like, they're trying to make it work, but eventually they're going to end up together. No matter who the coach is, it always ends up together. That being said, like, I'm not really sure what I want to do with this Edmonton team, right? Like, I don't want to play Draisaitl, Hyman, Kane at 20,900 without McDavid. That just feels awful. Do I want to play McDavid with Connor Brown and Nugent Hopkins without, like Draisaitl for the power play? I don't know. So like maybe like there's not a ton of ownership here. So I think even like one-offing McDavid is fine. One-offing Draisaitl is fine. It's just, like people are speculating that McDavid's hurt. He has 13 points in 14 games, the worst stretch of his season. Like, yeah, speculating is a dangerous game because McDavid could come out and have 31 points in the next 14 games and no one will remember the last 13 games. You know what I mean? So like, this is a good matchup. There's not a lot of ownership here. So like, I really don't mind one-offing McDavid, doing a power play stack for Edmonton. The Florida side for me is more interesting, and I want to get your thoughts there because like this is a good power play spot, but without Barkov and they're going 3 forwards, 2 defensemen on the top power play unit, it worries me if they lose the zone, who's going to regain it. And maybe I'm just overthinking it, but Barkov's the guy who usually brings into the zone without problems. And now you have Arvo Ekman-Larsson, Brandon Montour, Matt Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe, and Sam Reinhart. Maybe it's Reinhart, maybe it's Verhaeghe, but they're not to the same, enter the zone level as Barkov. So I do have a little bit of concerns there. But from a 5-on-5 match standpoint, I kind of dig this top line, even without Barkov there, with Lundell there. They're getting a little bit over-owned. So I want to get your thoughts on Florida as a whole. But I like both sides of this game.
Yeah, I do too. It's a little bit of a problem. The injury thing on McDavid is a little bit interesting. I'm going to bring up the NHL's official site. They brought these player tracking metrics in this year. I don't think they're overly useful, but one thing I do think they're useful for is like if there's drastic changes in like skating speed, skating burst, that type of thing, that might show that maybe a player's playing through an injury. It's something we talked about with Mitch Marner maybe like a month ago now at this point, 3 weeks ago or whatever it was. If you look at McDavid's comparisons over the last 2 years, the only thing that has dropped off is his goals and his shooting percentage. Like everything else is basically identical to last year. So I wouldn't have a hard time accepting that he is playing injured. But when you're looking at his shot rate, like his shot rate is down, but it's basically what it was like a few years ago. It's not like a career low or anything like that. And it's not even down that much from last year. So that plus, his skating, like it just makes me think like, even if he is playing injured, I don't think it's enough where it should be keeping him to this level of performance. I still think like, a tough start, then he got injured, missed a couple of games. Maybe it's just taking him some time to get going. I don't really like his line mates either. Like, let's be honest here. Like, I think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is probably one of the most overrated players in the NHL. Like, he just doesn't really do a whole lot outside the power play. Like, I'm sorry.
His season last year was insane, but it was like 68% power play points.
Right. And, you hate slandering a guy that has a 100-point season. I feel like we should definitely be putting RNH on the slander team here tonight. But I was looking at some of his playmaking metrics to start this season, and they're pathetic, like well below average from all 3 zones tracking. He's not the only one, by the way. Like I alluded to it earlier, but Evander Kane and Dylan Holloway also with terrible playmaking metrics. Like, if there's a reason why nobody in Edmonton's scoring at 5-on-5, it's because apparently they have like 2, maybe 3 forwards that can actually pass the puck. And McDavid and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, like not very great defensively in their minutes so far this season. Still a small sample, about league average by shot attempts against, well below average by expected goals against. But McDavid has 34 shot attempts in his last 5 games. That's almost 7 per game. If you average that out to a 60-minute span, like he's at like 18, 19 shot attempts per 60 minutes over his last 5 games, which like that's pretty good. And RNH has 8 shot attempts over his last 5 games. Like, you know what I mean? Like he just doesn't really do anything. Connor Brown's kind of the same thing. It's like, what are you getting paid to do here? Like get some cardio? What sucks is that going into Florida's actually been a pretty bad matchup for teams this year. But a lot of it has been because of Alexander Barkov. And it's a note that I make in my picks article. A lot of their success on the penalty kill this year specifically has come because of Alexander Barkov's penalty killing, like lowest shot attempts against, by far, like 10% fewer shots with him on the ice on the penalty kill than any other team or any other forward. Sorry. So like a lot of their success has been because of Barkov, and now he's out. And the point you make about Barkov, like being able to carry the puck at 5-on-5, I'll accentuate that with there's no one that can replicate what he does defensively on this team. No forward, no defense, or certainly no center, and probably no winger outside of Matt Tkachuk. And that is a pretty big problem because their top line is going to be a lot weaker defensively without him there. The penalty kill is going to be a lot weaker defensively without him there. And you have Edmonton coming in, and, you know, for all the slandering, maybe all the rifle slandering we do for the Oilers, they scored 4 goals in 4 straight games. And, you know, Seattle Islanders, Seattle, Tampa Bay, like those are some decent defense, either good defensive teams or teams with good goalies. Maybe they're starting to heat up a little bit. So I'm starting to come on board a little bit more with, you know, Edmonton power play guys. Like I'm not like, if you guys want to go out and play Connor Brown tonight, like go ahead and fill your boots. I'm not playing Connor Brown. Like anyways. Edmonton's top line, as I mentioned, leaky defensively, but also creating a lot offensively. 74 shot attempts per 60 minutes, a 5-on-5, 3.8 expected goals. They just haven't been able to finish. You know, slandering the Draisaitl line is perfectly fine by me. I'll never not get behind that. They are bad defensively. They have been creating offensively, though. 3.1 expected goals for Kane and Draisaitl together this year without McDavid. So, you know, they are starting to come around a little bit. If I were to do anything, it would probably be like a Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid, you know, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman. I don't think you necessarily have to play both McDavid and Leon Draisaitl here. I think you can just pick one and then go grab 2 of the other forwards and then be on your way. But, you know, I do think Florida's penalty kill is going to take a step back without Barkov. Edmonton's power play is still, you know, for all of Edmonton's problems, their power play is still really, really, really good. Florida doesn't take a lot of power penalties, but, you know, Edmonton is pretty good at drawing power play opportunities. So I am on the Edmonton power play guys here. The better question, I think, with Florida is which line to go towards. I had high hopes for Anton Lundell this year. I thought this year would kind of be like his breakout year. Like, he was really good a couple years ago, didn't have a good year last year. I thought he would kind of take a step forward this year. He really hasn't. Like, tonight is one of those, like, prove it nights, I guess you could say, to the coaching staff. Like, yes, I can be a top 6 center. You know, we'll see how that goes. I definitely have my doubts. You know, Verhaeghe and Reinhart, 2 pretty good wingers. But without Barkov as their center, like using literally any other center except for Barkov, whether it was Sam Bennett or Luosterainen or even Lundell, going back to last year, 2.2 expected goals, 2.1 actual goals per 60 minutes. I'm out on Florida 1. I'm in on Florida 2. I know Tkachuk has had some trouble scoring. I even mentioned that in the picks article. 20 shots on the power play this year for Tkachuk and 0 goals. You got to think that's going to regress positively pretty well. Now, Tkachuk might end up being the only guy on his line on the top power play unit. That kind of sucks because Edmonton does take a lot of penalties. They're at 3.9 times shorthanded per game this year. I agree with you. I don't think the Florida power play is going to be very good without Barkov, or as good as it could be. But I still like Tkachuk, Bennett, Rodriguez. I think I probably prefer just one-offing Matt Tkachuk here tonight. But I think Florida 2, going up against a pretty weak defensive Draisaitl line, going up against an Edmonton penalty kill that takes a lot of penalties, should get Matt Tkachuk on the power play a fair bit here tonight. I like Florida 2's matchup, and I like the Edmonton power play guys. I'm having a hard time trying to fit in either Connor Brown or Vander Kane in a stack or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the Edmonton power play guys, even when it was like Yamamoto, like whoever was up there, you know what I mean? Like last year, it doesn't matter. You just play the power play guys, and Like that essentially makes Nugent Hopkins a pretty good play tonight. But like if I'm going to do something on Oilers tonight, I think I'll probably just stick to like McDavid Bouchard. You know what I mean? Just two-man those guys, go about my day. If they burn me 5-on-5, the sun will rise tomorrow. There'll be no hockey. I'll shed a tear, and I'll come back on Wednesday and do it again. Let's go from a 7 total to a 5.5, and we like the game. Shocker. We always end up liking the 5.5 totals. I don't know what it is, but let's talk about it. The New York Rangers did a 2.6 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 2.9 total. Scott Wedgwood starting for Dallas tonight. It's Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers. Couple of notes here. The Rangers' top line still sucks. That's not really a note. That's just an evergreen for the past 7 years. They cannot score 5-on-5. It's just what it is. There's no ownership there. So if you want a power play stack in MME, go for it. My interest here on the Rangers side is Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. They're a little under 18K on DraftKings, which is a fair price. They have positive leverage, and they're going to see a fair bit of the Wyatt Johnston, Jamie Benn, Dadonov line. And that line has been leaky defensively this season for whatever reason. So I do like this Rangers second line. I do consider them in play in 1 to 3. The Dallas side is where it gets a bit more spicy because our boys, Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment are on the slate. 12,400. I think they're a good filler line going up against the depth of the Rangers. Like you can say what you want about Bonino, Kakko, Cooley. That's just not a very good defensive line. Barclay, Goodrow, Tyler Pitlick, Jimmy Vesey, whatever. Like this line against bottom 6 matchups against almost any team is in play for me. What's interesting to me, and I think this is where your interest lies as well, is Dallas 1. They're 19,300. They're coming in with under 3% projected ownership. I don't recommend making a living stacking against Igor Shesterkin, but where you can is on the power play. He's been shaky on the power play the last season and a half. The problem is the Rangers don't take a ton of penalties, so I don't know if I'll get to there in 1 to 3. But, man, they are a sneaky GPP play target in MME tonight, I think.
Oh, God, not again. So we did our proper Joe Pavelski slander on Saturday, and
he scored.
He scored, but he scored on the power play. And, we said specifically, like, he's probably still a really good power play option. So leave him on the top power play unit. He had a 12% expected goal share in that game against Colorado. That top line got absolutely steamrolled, ran out of their building at 5-on-5 by Colorado. Now, yeah, I mean, it's Colorado. I certainly wouldn't put the Zibanejad line anywhere near the McKinnon line in terms of 5-on-5 play, so things shouldn't get that bad again. But just to kind of highlight for anybody that missed the show on Saturday, what we were talking about, over Dallas's last 12 games, so, we're talking a fairly sizable sample now. We're talking about 15% of the season, give or take. Yeah. 2.2 expected goals for, 2.3 against. They're getting outplayed over a 12-game sample now. 2.9 actual goals for, which is it's okay. It's above average, but it's over a full goal lower where we would expect them to be when you look at their prior 2 seasons. 4.3 actual goals against. They're getting lit up. And it makes me wonder just how much longer they can actually go like this, because one thing I forget if I was talking to you on Saturday or somebody else about it, but this team is being carried by their third line right now and have been for a few weeks, I guess. Their third line plus Ottinger, the games where Ottinger doesn't get blown up, he's winning them games. It's the Mason Marchment, Tyler Sagan, Matt Duchesne line that is literally carrying this Dallas team. In fact, I was looking at the numbers a little bit earlier. Tyler Sagan has been on the ice for more Dallas goals this year than any other player. and he's not on the top power play unit. That should tell you just how badly things are going for the Dallas top line. All that said, 2 to 3% ownership at home. We know how good this line was for like 2.5 years, basically. Maybe it's just like a 3 or 4 week stumble. What I don't like about it is that they're not generating. Like, I wouldn't, if their defensive numbers had fallen off like Tampa Bay's top line had until they put Hagel back, I would say, okay, fine. Like, defensive numbers fall off, they're still generating. They're not generating. That's the problem, is that they're not creating any offense, and they're losing on the defensive end. But at 3% ownership, like, I'm not saying I'm playing them. Like, they're not even one of my favorite lines here tonight. It's just really hard to pass up that kind of ownership for a line that we've seen, as recently as like 8 months ago, just absolutely nuke teams off the face of the planet. You know what I mean? So I do have some interest in Dallas 1, but all I can think of is our boss Jake Harry saying, like, just saying play the good lines. You know what I mean? And right now, Dallas 1 is not one of their good lines. So I think I'm kind of in. We'll call it Dallas. We're calling it Dallas 2 now. They used to be Dallas 3. Duchesne, Seguin, and Marchment, you were talking about their numbers this year. They've been really, really good. I even wrote them up for the picks article. They're flirting with 4 expected goals, 5.6 actual goals, 4 per 60 minutes. Like, they're putting up the numbers you would expect from Dallas 1, basically, at 5-on-5. And, splitting the power play time a little bit more. So there is power play time to go around for that line. They were all on the second power play unit together in the last game. So, maybe there's some upside to them even on the power play. And you were talking about Shesterkin struggling on the penalty kill, and he definitely has. So I really do like that Seguin line here again tonight. It's one of those things. It's like it feels like it's worth playing them until they stop generating the way they are, right? They're just generating like an elite first line, and they're getting second line minutes now. You talk about how the Johnston and Ben line is struggling. They're getting more minutes at even strength than that line is. I'm wondering how long it's going to be until they're getting more than the Hintz Robertson line, because they've been Dallas's best line for probably a month now. And not just offensively, defensively as well. So I really do like the Seguin line from Dallas. On the Rangers side, I agree with you. It is that Rangers second line. Again, play the good lines. It's the one line that is creating. Whether it's been Kako or whether it's been Wheeler, the top line is just not scoring at 5-on-5. Mika Zibanejad has been on the ice for 5 goals at 5-on-5 this year. We're like 6 weeks into the season. You know what I mean? Things are not going well for that line at 5-on-5. And I was looking at their shot map. The reason why is because all the shots that they're taking are coming from about 4 feet outside the face-off dot. Like, he's basically, like, Zibanejad is taking shots like he was a defenseman. You can't do that. Like, just go look at Buffalo and Tage Thompson. The Buffalo top line with Tage Thompson's did basically the exact same thing until Thompson got hurt. They weren't scoring. Like, you can't shoot from 50 feet. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know what's so hard to figure out about that. You can't shoot from 45, 50 feet and expect to score with any kind of regularity at the NHL level. Like, it just doesn't happen. So until they change their approach at 5-on-5, like, I'm out on Rangers 1. Rangers 2 is just generating a lot of really good offense, though. 2.9 expected goals with Vincent Trocheck there, 84 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Panarin, I know we talk about how he's shooting more. He's literally top 5 in the league in shot attempts per minute. Like, this is a guy that's never been anywhere as close to that. Trocheck is on the top power play unit as well. I do like Rangers 2 in this matchup, especially with Scott Wedgwood in net starting for Dallas. So Dallas 2, as they're listed now in our top stacks tool, the Seguin line and the Panarin line from the Rangers. That's what I like here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Seguin, Duchesne, they're playing 17, 18 minutes a night, and they're 12,400 for the full line. Like, they haven't gotten more expensive in the past 3 weeks. Oh, man. And then, Mika Zibanejad just acts like it's a power play when it's not. He does the same thing on the power play he does at even strength. He'll skate into the zone, sit at the dot, and fire off a slap shot, but the difference is there's an extra person there to block it.
I just for your sanity, I hope that they change up their approach a little bit at 5-on-5, but we'll see.
Well, they could use Pavel Buchnevich, but congrats, Christian.
That's neither here nor there.
If you like the hockeys, then I don't know why you wouldn't, and you want to take your game to the next level and you want to go premium, click the link in the description box below to get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. Get player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and the Discord. Discord been a bit crazy the past few days. It gets a little wild from time to time, but there's a lot of winners in there, lots of people willing to help. So click the link in the description box below. You can get weekly, you can get monthly, you can add Fantasy Cruncher, you can not add Fantasy Cruncher. You get the tools that we show on the show that Cliffy's showing now. And as always, Cliffy's article will be free. This show will be free. But if you want to take your game to the next level, smash that link in the description below. Get in the Discord, say you came from the show. Clayton will give you the rules. Let's move on to the next one. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.6 total heading into Nashville. The Predators have a 2.9. Now, this one, I was a bit surprised at the ownership, considering that Vancouver's on the slate with a 4.1, that Colorado 1 is coming in with this much ownership at 23,700. Maybe it's not that big of a surprise because they're pretty bad on the penalty kill. It's not the best 5-on-5 matchup, though. Like that O'Reilly, Forsberg, Nyquist line has been very good. The problem is, like I talked about on Saturday, like McKinnon lines are matchup proof. They ran Dallas 1 out of the building, like you said. Like O'Reilly's offensive numbers are still good. He's not the defensive center he was 3-4 years ago. So like it's a fine 5-on-5 matchup and a very good power play matchup, but I don't know. I was a bit surprised at the ownership. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I do really like Colorado 1. Nashville 1's interesting. They're coming in right at their top 2 stack percentage projected at 9%. Like this is not a very good matchup. Like maybe I'll dip down to Nashville 2 here. But like I just don't like these lines. So I think it's a Colorado 1 game for me.
Yeah. So I mean, I wrote up Nathan McKinnon in the picks article. Like I agree with you on Colorado 1. Like I wrote up Nathan McKinnon in the picks article. They were hoping to back off his minutes this year, and then injuries happen, and you're back to 22 minutes a game. Sorry, man. Like nothing we can do about that. But the top line has been really good defensively since they had to move Nichushkin up after those injuries. 2 expected goals against per 60 minutes, 5-on-5. Nichushkin averaging nearly 7 shot attempts per game over his last 4 games, so he's getting pretty involved at both ends of the ice. Nashville's top line has been pretty good defensively, 2.4 expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 with Nyquist there. So it's not really a great matchup. But like those defensive numbers, as you just mentioned, and as I mentioned back in the Dallas game, those defensive numbers are basically in line with the Dallas top line. And the Dallas top line got absolutely Bart Simpson choked on Saturday by this Colorado team. And it just shows like Colorado can kind of do that to anybody. I do like Colorado 1 here tonight, but it's more for the power play. Nashville's penalty kill has really, really struggled so far this year. It's easily been a top 10 penalty or bottom 10, penalty kill in the league. Colorado's power play shot attempts and shots on goal are down a bit without Arturi Lehkonen, but it's one of those like, even if their shots go down like 5 to 10% without Lehkonen, there's just so much talent elsewhere that it doesn't really bother me all that much. Perfectly correlated top line. I do like Colorado 1. The problem is like they are getting quite a bit of ownership.
Was surprising. Like, yeah. Am I wrong there?
17.3%. I don't think you're wrong, but I think it's just a function of everything else, right? Like Boston going into Tampa, people are going to be less inclined to play Boston in that matchup. Edmonton with their broken lines, broken in more ways than one. Dallas at home, Dallas is just they have a broken top line. Not that they don't have power play correlation. They're just broken players. So like I kind of get the ownership. It's just really, really high. That's why I recommended Boston in my picks article. It's like I'd rather play Boston one at a third of the ownership. You know what I mean? That's just kind of the way that I look at it. Like absolutely no, like obviously like Nathan McKinnon, like cash games, perfectly fine. If you just wanted like two of the guys or something like that, like that's fine. Like no issues playing Colorado tonight for any reason other than I think they're coming in with a little bit too much ownership. That's literally it. So if everything else you think lines up well, like go ahead and play them. There's really no reason, like no real reason not to. What interests me a little bit more is the Colorado. I mean, I guess they're technically the third line.
Colton.
The Colton O'Connor Wood line. They've been really good since Logan O'Connor got there. 95 shot attempts per 60 minutes, 4.4 expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Like Logan O'Connor's really helps kind of stabilize that line and honestly give them that second line that they needed with all those winger injuries and Ryan Johansson, frankly, not playing well at all. In Colorado. So Ross Colton, Miles Wood over the last 2 weeks are first and second on the team in shot attempts per 60 minutes, like ahead of McKinnon. They've been getting more ice time of late. They are basically the second line at even strength now. They're going to get much softer matchups against the second and third lines from Nashville. Like if you wanted they're going to come in over owned. And I don't think you have to 3-man stack. I think you can do like a 2-man of like Colton O'Connor or something like that, or Colton Wood or whatever. But I think that Colorado third line is another one of those fillery type lines that you can use with expensive Tampa Bay, with expensive Boston, with an expensive Edmonton stack, with an expensive, Vancouver power play stack, with those super expensive stacks. I think Colorado 3 is at the very least like a 2-manable stack here tonight. On the Nashville side, I think it's got to be Nashville win or bust. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a particularly good matchup. Colorado does take a lot of penalties. They're at 4 times shorthanded per game, but they do have a pretty good penalty kill besides that. And Nashville's top line coming in at like 9-10%. I think there are just other spots on this slate with like 8-9-10% owned lines that I would rather play. So no issue playing Nashville 1 here. I just think I'd be more inclined to maybe one-off Philip Forsberg, even Cody Glass down on the second line playing on the top power play unit, like one-offing him. Or on the Colorado side going to that Ross Colton line. Like I kind of like the depth guys in this game a little bit more, which that always scares me.
Well, like the reason I was shocked that Colorado won so high, I finally thought about it, and put it into words, not just babbling on about nonsense, is if you try to power play stack the Canucks, you do like Pettersson, Miller, Besser, right? It's about the same price as Colorado won. So I thought there was going to be a lot more ownership on Vancouver, and maybe it comes up during the day, and we'll get to that game there. And that's why initially I was like, oh, Colorado 1's going to be overlooked tonight. Wrong. So yeah. Anyway, let's get to another game that I like with not a lot of ownership. Los Angeles Kings with a 3.5 total. Heading into Arizona, the Coyotes have a 3 total. Man, the Kings ran over the Blues in the first period on Saturday, which kind of ruined it for DFS because that game was over before the end of the first period. But man, did that LA top line look good. Fully correlated, and they're not getting a lot of ownership. There's 16,900. Yeah, Josh's boy Adrian Kempe. Yeah, he's my Habibi. He definitely is my Habibi. But he's expensive tonight. But I don't know. It's a really good matchup with no ownership. 3.2% projected. The Arizona top line is fine with Boyd there. But the issue is Arizona takes an immense amount of penalties, and that top line's fully correlated. Now, if you want to go to the second line, I think that is perfectly fine too, because they're in a very, very good 5-on-5 matchup. And you get Fiala on the top power play, you get Moore and Deneau on the second power play. I really like the Kings here tonight. On the Arizona side, yeah. Kings are a wagon, man. They're more of an MME play for me.
Yeah, I won't spend a lot of time on Arizona because I'm not super excited about playing them here tonight. But what I will say is that in their game, like they lost on Saturday. In that game, the last 3 or 4 shifts, they moved Alex Kerfoot to the top line and like pushed Travis Boyd back down the lineup. I think that makes more sense.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
I think Kerfoot's a better player than Travis Boyd at this point. Like, at the very least, Kerfoot's a good defensive player, right? So, he might not bring a lot in the DFS game, but at least he's a decent defensive player. But why that's interesting is that makes the top power play unit fully correlated in that instance, right? So Kerfoot, Schmaltz, Keller could be the top line for Arizona here tonight. I think that would make them passable defensively, definitely a lot better than defensively than with Boyd there, and it would make it a little bit of a tougher matchup with Los Angeles. But I'm not playing Arizona one here tonight. Like this just doesn't seem the night for. What I will say is that Phoenix Copley is starting for the Kings, and there's a reason why Cam Talbot's been starting just about every game for the Kings for a month now. It's because Phoenix Copley has just not looked good this year. So I don't have a ton of interest in Arizona, but Alex Kerfoot's only 2,700. Like that's not a lot. Keller's down to 6,700. Schmaltz at 5K on DraftKings. So you can stack the line for what, 14,400. A perfectly correlated top line at home with a 3 total, which is higher than the Nashville team we just talked about, which is the same total as Tampa Bay, which is the same total as Edmonton. Perfectly correlated at home for 14,400. And if it is Kerfoot there, it's probably going to be a pretty low-owned combination. So I think I'm with you. I'd be more inclined in an MME, but people should keep that line in mind and just know that we don't have confirmation on Kerfoot playing there. He was just there for the last handful of shifts at the end of last game. We never get Arizona updates at all. Well, I shouldn't say at all, like almost never get Arizona updates. So we won't find out until warm up. And even then we might not know in warm up. So, good luck. It is the Los Angeles side I'm more interested in. It's the I wrote up Kevin Fiala in the picks article, mainly because he should get easier matchups down the lineup with Danault and Moore down the Arizona lineup. But that Kings top line ownership, man, there's just not a lot coming in on them. I'll bring up the Los Angeles top line top stacks real quick. 5.8% top 2 stack, 3.2% ownership. Little under 17K, getting a little expensive, but Quentin Byfield's playmaking metrics so far this season have literally been amongst the best in the league. I was looking at them yesterday. I'm talking in line with guys like Matt Tkachuk and Sidney Crosby as far as playmaking goes. It's just absolutely insane how much he's setting up both Kopitar and Kempe. We mentioned on the show how much losing Juuso Välimäki hurts the defensive side of things for Arizona, and I think that's pretty much held true every game. Arizona gave up 41 shots to the Columbus Blue Jackets, okay? This team is not going to be good defensively without Välimäki. I really, really like Kings 1 here. Going down to Kings 2 is fine. They're coming in with more ownership because they are a fair bit cheaper, which, it is what it is. I just like the way the Kings top line has been playing, basically going back to last year. Byfield looks like he's taking another step. The underlying metrics show the exact same thing. Correlated on the power play. I'm not worried about any matchup from the Arizona side. So Kings 1 for me. Any of the top 3 Kings lines are definitely in play, though.
Yeah, 3.5 road total. No ownership. Definitely interested. As we mentioned at the top of the show, we are sponsored by Vivid Picks, and you can get a $300 deposit match on your first deposit. Standard deposit match is $100, so you won't get this offer anywhere else other than clicking the link in the description box below. Your first entry on Viv Picks comes with a $25 secure play, so if your first entry loses, you get it refunded up to $25 on Vivid site credit. Predict whether players will have more or less than their projected stats across multiple sports, and combine your selections for bigger payouts. Not legal in New Jersey, but I would do it if it was. Calgary Flames with a 3 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 3 total. Here we are again, man. These two teams drive me nuts. The most expensive line in this game is 13,100, and it's Nazem Kadri, Connor Zary, Martin Pospisil. The most expensive line in this game, which means there are many playable lines in this game. I think the Kadri Zary Pospisil line is my favorite. There's only 2% ownership. They're cheap. You get 2 guys on the top power play unit. That being said, you want to go to Backlund, Coleman, Huberdeau, go for it. I just haven't. I prefer Kadri Zary. On the Seattle side, there's more ownership there because they're at home and Markstrom is a train wreck. Ownership agnostic, I'd probably go to the Gord, Tolvin, and Bjorkstrand line. Like Bjorkstrand has been creating. He's been shooting. The issue is they're coming in almost in double-digit ownership, and their top 2 stack percentage is 2.3. Like, that's pretty high negative leverage. I think for me, like, you want to go to, like, Beniers, McCann Eberle. I think that's fine. You want to just go, like, Beniers and Dunn, whatever, that's fine. Like, in a nutshell, I kind of like Seattle here, and I like the Tolvin and Bjorkstrand line the best. It's just the ownership is kind of rubbing me the wrong way.
Yeah, there is a fair bit of ownership on that side. I will start with Calgary first. I did write up Connor Zary again for the picks article. Again, free to read at Stokastic.com. Him and Kadri have been really, really good together on the second line. You know, they played with a few different wingers. Martin Pospisil's been there for like the last 4 or 5 games now, but, you know, I think they had Yegor Sharangovich for a little bit. Anyways, 3 expected goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 in their time together. They're up near 100 minutes together. So, you know, not a tiny sample. Like we're getting to the point where they have, you know, 8-9 games worth of ice time together. 4.8 actual goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. I mentioned Zary in our Discord this morning because I was looking at, there's a prospect model I follow from a guy named Byron Bader. And he's one of the prospect model guys that I really trust. And I was looking at his projections from the 2020 draft, and that's when Connor Zary was drafted. He was like the 20-something overall pick in that year. The model that I was looking at had him tied for the 5th highest probability to turn into an NHL star, ahead of guys that have already made the NHL regularly, like Seth Jarvis, Dawson Mercer. I think Anton Lundell was on that list as well. He was tied with Tim Stutzle. And, you know, there have been guys from that 2020 draft that have just taken time to really find their legs. Like, you know, Byfield, Lafreniere, Marco Rossi. Like, there's been a number of guys that it took them 2 or 3 years for whatever reason to really start finding their stride at the NHL level, which is why maybe it just took Connor Zary 3 years. Like, you know, a pandemic time for a draft prospect, like we haven't had anything like it since the inception of the NHL. So like, there's just nothing that we can compare it to. I think it would make sense that there were some guys whose development were hurt more than others. And, you know, he had a strong showing in the AHL this season, which is why he got called up to the NHL. He's got 8 points in 8 games. Like, it's just been a really good line. And they're not going to see much of the Beniers line. And I'm not worried about any other matchups from Seattle, honestly. Like, the Yenny Gord line hasn't even – like, they've been good defensively, haven't been elite. Like, you know, the Seattle top line, the Beniers line, below average defensively. So even if they see them a little bit, like, more than anything, it's the power play, right? Seattle's power play or penalty kill has been pretty bad this year. And, you know, not that Calgary's power play is like elite or anything, but at the very least, you get Zary and Kadri both on the top power play units. So I do like Calgary too as well. Not so big on the top line. Like, I was a believer in Yegor Sharangovich a while ago, so I know what the Calgary Flames are going through. It's something I can relate to with them. It just ends in heartbreak. He got moved. I think he got moved up there over Dylan Dubé for a few shifts last game. That's why I say that. But anyways, so I do like Calgary too. On the Seattle side, it's just going back to the Beniers line. Like, eventually they got to break through a little bit more. They're still only shooting 5.6%. Matty Beniers has 16 shot attempts in his last 3 games, so he's starting to shoot the puck more. I like to see that. So if anything, it would be Seattle 1. I think I agree with you. I'd be more inclined to like one off Beniers or one off Vince Dunn or one off Tolman and like something like that, rather than just full on stack. For a full stack, I like Calgary 2 here.
Yeah, full stacking Seattle is just a recipe for pain late at night. Let's talk about some more pain. San Jose Sharks with a 2.3 total. What a transition. That's why I got to pay the big bucks. Heading into Vancouver, the Canucks have a 4.1. Oh, boy. And there's not a lot of ownership relative to their total here. The top line coming in at 8.3% projected, or 8.4% projected. JT Miller line, 8.3% projected. Like the 5-on-5 lines are still cheap, right? 17-6 and 18-1. And I guess you can 5-on-5 stack here, but like I want a power play stack here, and that's when it gets really expensive because like I don't even know if it's possible to full power play stack him.
You can't.
Yeah.
Not on DraftKings. I didn't check FanDuel, but you can on DraftKings.
You can on DraftKings. There's no way you can do it on FanDuel. They're usually more expensive, but like going Pettersson, Miller, Besser, as I mentioned, is around the same price as Colorado 1. You can fit Colorado 1 in pretty comfortably here tonight. So, like, I don't mind that combo. You want to go Kuzmenko, save some salary? Go for it. Like, I'm not going to spend too much time on the Canucks here. They have a 4.1 total. They just beat the crap out of the Sharks 10-1 the last time they played. Like, Sharks haven't gotten any better. So, I don't know. Vancouver power play at not as much ownership as Colorado 1. Okay. Sharks, yeah, fun. Yay. 12-3 for the top line. I'd rather go play Dallas 3 or Calgary 2.
So I think this is what's happening with Vancouver is like their top, like we said, you can't stack the top power play unit. Their top guys are really, really expensive outside of Kuzmenko. So when you get to all those top, like then you're putting them in line with Colorado, with Edmonton, with Boston. So like even though the 5-on-5 lines are relatively cheap, like you said, 18,100 for Miller, 17,600 for Pettersson on DraftKings here tonight. Once you start looking at just the power play guys, then you start putting them in the same conversation as Colorado and so on and so forth. But then you have to break up your line combinations, and you can't use the cheap guys. And I think that's kind of what's going on. Like let's just like the Pettersson line. Okay. I wrote up Andrei Kuzmenko in the picks article today just because he is so cheap. He's under 5K on DraftKings, and he gets all those minutes with Pettersson and with the power play unit. He's regressed. He shot 27% last year. He was going to regress. He's down to like 10 point something percent this year, maybe 11%, but he doesn't shoot the puck. Like he's well under 2 shots per game. So if he doesn't shoot the puck and he's not scoring at a 27% clip, he's basically just an assist bot, right? Like that's basically all you can rely. You can rely on him for like 8 DraftKings points. Like that's kind of the problem. And you know, Ilya Mikheyev really is shooting the puck a lot, but he's not on the power play unit. So it's almost like they should have their roles switched. If they had their roles switched, maybe we'd see something different. You know, the JT Miller line, Phil DiGiuseppe is just, you know, it's Phil DiGiuseppe. And none of those guys really shoot the puck a lot, right? They're also relying on pretty high percentages. So I kind of get the ownership here. I still really like Vancouver. Like, I would probably lean to the Miller, Besser, DiGiuseppe line again because although I do like Kuzmenko and I do like including him in Vancouver power play stacks here tonight because he is so cheap relative to everyone else, you know, he's still wearing that giant face shield. Miller and Besser and DiGiuseppe, they do get more ice time with Quinn Hughes, like a larger share of their ice time, let's say. So I do like that Miller, Besser, DiGiuseppe line here tonight. I think Vancouver 3 is kind of interesting. Garland, Bluger, Dakota Joshua. 3.8 expected goals, 76 shot attempts per 60 minutes so far this season, and they get San Jose depth. But, you know, they are probably going to be fairly highly owned for a third line. I don't know if I'd full 3-man stack. I think like one off in Connor Garland certainly makes a lot of sense, like 2-manning Bluger and Garland or something like that makes sense. If you need cheap Vancouver guys, they are available. But I do like the JT Miller line here. Nothing for me from the San Jose side.
Yeah,
I'm just not talking about them.
No, there's no reason.
Not in this matchup, no.
And the point about the Vancouver bottom six is a good one because the last time they played, by the third period, the top two lines basically were on the bench because it was 312-0. So, yay. Coming up after us at 5 p.m., NBA Deeper Dive with Josh Engelman and Adam Schur. 6 p.m., NBA Live Before Lock with Greg Ehrenberg and Eric Lindquist. 7:15 p.m., NFL Showdown Live Before Lock with Lofty and Neil. Maybe we'll actually get a good game tonight. Eagles-Chiefs. Not going to hold my breath. Probably watching hockey anyway. We'll talk a little bit about defensemen and some goalies. Let me pull up the goalies, or let me pull up the defensemen here. Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes at the top of the list. I like Quinn Hughes when he was like 6K. 7,700 is getting a little bit spicy. I'd rather play Makar. Yossi, sure. I really like Charlie McAvoy here tonight. Evan Bouchard. Jacob Trouba is getting somewhat pricey, 5,500, but this feels like a Jacob Trouba type of game. I don't know. Brandon Montour on the top power play unit now, 5,200. Who else you liking in this range?
I mean, Evan Bouchard for sure. If you don't want to pay up for all the Edmonton guys, I always say going for Bouchard makes a lot of sense here. And, it doesn't look like there's going to be much ownership on him here tonight. So I think he might be my favorite expensive defenseman on the board. I do like Quinn Hughes, though. I mean, I know you don't want to pay up 7,700 for him, but it's San Jose, man.
The point I was making is the point you kind of made on Saturday, where you say he doesn't block 3 or 4 shots a game, but this is a game where he can have 3 points and 7 shots on goal. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. I do like Hughes. For me, it's Bouchard and then Hughes amongst the expensive guys in the mid price. 2 guys from the same game. Actually 3 guys from the same game: Montour, Nurse, Ekblad. That's probably the order that I would use them in my lineups as well, especially with Montour jumping up to the top power play unit. Nurse, definitely a threat for a combo meal shot and block bonus here tonight. Also, obviously Philip Hronik if you don't want to pay up for Hughes. I'll mix in Drew Doughty as well. I usually am not a Drew Doughty guy. I just think it's a much better than normal matchup against Arizona here tonight, especially on the power play. For cheap guys, Troy Stetcher, 2,500. He's been playing more minutes for Arizona, playing 18, 19 minutes. So if you need a mid-price guy, I think he's it. Jan Ruda. For San Jose, though, I did see Jacob McDonald's going to be back for San Jose tonight, though he's a defenseman they've been using up front. So, I mean, God knows what that lineup's going to look like. Jordan Spence for the Kings. He doesn't play a lot of minutes, but the Kings' second power play unit has been their better unit, and they're basically splitting power play time now. So he's getting 2.5 power play minutes per game. Don't mind Jordan Spence at 2,700 if you want to pay down. For a little bit more expensive amongst the cheap guys, Noah Hannafin at the top with a bullet, 3,900, running Calgary top power play unit. Also like Adam Larson in that game. As long as he stays under 4K, I think he's playable. JJ Mosier, I'll mention him again from Arizona. He's getting more minutes with Valley Mackey out, and Essa Lindell for the same reason from Dallas, more minutes with Thomas Harley out.
Yeah, lots of defensemen.
Oh, Nick says Tyler Myers multi-point game. I had him written down as well. I got to say, I don't hate Tyler Myers here tonight. This feels like one of those games where Tyler Myers just lugs the puck every time he touches it, because it'll be like a pond hockey game for him.
Yeah. You can tell me that anyone on the Nucks could have a multi-point game tonight, and I would probably believe you,
except for Sam Lafferty.
So lock him in. We'll put him in our lineup in the 15.
The slander lineup.
Yeah, the slander lineup. We should honestly track that. Probably the best ROI of the season. Slander lineup. Boy. Let's talk goalies. The top end is always a scene. Demko, 8,500, needs a shutout probably. I can't see the Sharks getting 35 shots in this game. Georgiev, I guess, is fine up at the top. Like, I don't want to play Bob Copley or Grubauer above 8K. Like, that's just a scene. I think Linus Ullmark or whoever starts for Boston is interesting to me. Igor Shesterkin at 7,500. Connor Ingram always in play for me just because the Kings very high volume and Ingram's been good. UC Saros if you want to ride the Lightning and don't want to click an Ingram for some reason. Other than that, like, goalie's thin today.
Yeah, I mean, Connor Ingram was the guy that I wrote up. Like, he had one really bad game this year. He got pulled after 3 goals or something like that. Other than that, he's been really good in just about every start he's had. And he's been on, I think he's won 5 straight games, faced at least 40 shots in his last 2 because Valimaki's out, so he's facing a lot of volume now. So I do like Ingram. Also like Saros for his price. Like, yeah, it's riding the Lightning against Colorado, but, you know, as long as Nashville can hold him off on the penalty kill, I think, you know, Saros could have a decent game here tonight. Georgiev for Colorado is pretty cheap on FanDuel. I think he's only like 7,600 on FanDuel for whatever reason. So I don't mind him on FanDuel specifically. Also, I mean, it feels bad to say it. If you have the cap space left over and you can fit in an $8,000 goalie, I think it's Philip Grubauer from Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, you take the name out of it and the team out of it. Calgary creates a lot of quantity, but not a lot of quality.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, like a poor man's Carolina.
Yeah,
a very poor man's Carolina.
Yeah, goalie sucks. Goalie always sucks though. Like, who are you looking for your hat trick pick?
I think this is the second time I picked him this year. I think he scored the first time I took him, but certainly didn't get a hat trick. Let's see if he can pull it off tonight. I'm going with Arthur Kaliev.
Nice. Got to go back to spicy. And it's not really like that spicy, but it's a position you don't really expect. I'm going Evan Bouchard.
Ooh, that'd be something. I hope he does. So I'll probably have him in my lineup tonight. So I hope he does.
That'll be fun. We'll have fun. No games tomorrow. This everyone's saying oh no to the Bouchard pick, but listen, I haven't hit a hat trick pick since like 1973, so you guys are fine. No games tomorrow. The schedule is very wonky this week with American Thanksgiving. Wednesday there's a huge slate. Friday there's a huge slate. We will be back Wednesday for that big slate. So make sure to smash that like button on your way out. You want to go premium, click that link in the description below. Get into the Discord. Good luck, everybody, and hopefully we're talking about you Wednesday morning.
Good luck tonight, everyone.